What surprised me was that not that many people knew. It's a $4 billion company.
I guess we have grown in the kind of shadows of things. So now we are a profitable pharmaceutical company with strong pipeline. So we have a unique position in that sense.
The long-acting, it's amazing that it works so well and that it changes some of the drugs, which are basically generics. And it can make such a difference.
As an opioid use disorder patient really doesn't want to be reminded of their disease. So the fact that you kind of have monthly doses makes you feel more ordinary.
How do you look at the Swedish biotech ecosystem in general?
But I think the Nordics have had traditionally very strong healthcare industry and pharmaceutical industry. We're continuing to build on that.
Bienvenue to a new episode. I'm your host Philip, and on the Flood Bio Show, I'm interviewing the best Europeans in biotech to help you grow. Long-acting drugs have changed certain diseases. One of the best biotech in the world in this space is Camurus. It has 2 products on the market and is worth over $4 billion. So I went to Lund in Sweden to talk to its CEO Fredrik Tiberg. I didn't know him personally, nor Camurus that well, but I've seen the company in the top 10 most valuable biotechs on the Flood Bio map. And this got me curious. We talked about how Camurus is helping to solve the opioid crisis. We also talked about the next coming drugs, including long-acting GLP-1 for obesity, and why being a biotech CEO can be more exciting than being a professor in academia. So here's my conversation with Fredrik, and please hit the follow button if you're enjoying it. Today's episode is sponsored by YSDS, your special delivery service. YSDS help pharma and biotech teams move sensitive, time-critical shipments worldwide with dedicated experts available 24/7 and full shipment visibility. If you need reliability beyond standard logistics, YSDS is worth knowing. You can learn more by clicking on the link in the description below. Welcome to the show, Fredrik.
Thank you, Philip. It's nice to have you here.
Cool. Your new office, I heard you just moved in January.
Yeah, it's a brilliant place. A lot of things happening around here. We have a neutron facility and a big X-ray synchrotron here. So it's for a scientific field, it's a great place. Yeah,
that's cool. So I want to start with Camurus, but at large. What surprised me when I prepared this episode was that not that many people knew you guys actually. And then I told them, it's a $4 billion company, top 10 biotech at this market cap in Europe. And okay, wow. I mean, you have basically two products on the market, 290, 300 employees, the market cap, $4 billion. So can you maybe just start a quick high-level pitch for the people who don't know you?
I guess we have grown in the kind of shadows of things, but I mean, we have been around for quite some time. I joined the company in 2003. At that stage, we were just a small development company, and then we have grown steadily, I think mostly organically, over the course of several years. And now we are a profitable pharmaceutical company with a strong pipeline. So we have a unique position in that sense, and perhaps we haven't made, multiple raises of capital and so forth. So in that way, perhaps we are not as visual as others. But I mean, you will help us.
Hope so. And can you quickly on the what were the major milestones maybe from the I think you were founded 1990, right?
Yeah. Actually, we came from the 90s, and at that time it was more a service model company. So when I joined in 2002, actually, just
as a board member. Right?
Yeah, no, I actually joined as head of R&D, and then 6 months later became the CEO of the company. I mean, at that point, we decided to focus more on building the technology platforms and starting later on the first developments in terms of medical products.
Yeah, I heard from you, Fredrik, when we prepared the call that basically when you came in, you almost not started from a blank page, but we have started a lot of things new.
Yeah, we actually closed all ongoing projects because we realized that there was some kind of issues in terms of the IP and other things. So we basically had to restart the business in some way, but in a positive way. Yeah.
In hindsight, it's positive.
Yeah. Okay.
And what were the major milestones? Let's say 3 to 5 milestones from 2022 until today.
I think the first milestone was developing the FluidCrystal technology and seeing that it worked in both animals first, but then in patients, and that was a big break for us. Then, of course, you always expect things to go faster than they do in pharma. This is so many hurdles you can enter. But and then going forward, fast forwarding, we did actually an important transaction with Novartis on the what is now the CAM 2029 program, and now actually an approved product. So that was, but there were some arrangements, Novartis that changed things. Then we entered an agreement with Braeburn Pharmaceuticals on the opioid use disorder indication, which we had developed previously. Is something I feel very strongly for. I think it's a very undertreated group and a very exposed patient population. So going from there, and then the IPO in 2015, which allowed us to start building up our commercial infrastructure. And then, of course, now our second approval. So it's been stepwise. And also we are now expanding from Australia and Europe now into the US. So that's a further important milestone for the company.
That's impressive, actually. Yeah. I mean, there's not that many biotechs, even in Europe, that make it through and commercial, not just one product, 2 products.
No. And hopefully 3 and 4.
Hope so. Actually, it's funny because you mentioned Novartis. I just recorded an episode with someone from Novartis and actually mentioned you guys, and I think he was kind of in charge of the deal at Novartis.
Yeah, we actually had a very good relationship. It was a brilliant team to work with, but there were some management changes and changes in priorities. Unfortunately, we got the rights back. So I think that's what happens in biotech often. I mean, it's you do different choices for different strategic reasons. Yeah.
So it was not for the product or the platform itself was more.
No, I think we always had a very enthusiastic team on the other side, so to speak. Yeah. But yeah.
And that was on the
Oczyesa and Oczyesa product, which we are now just launched in Germany, for instance, and we are now also resubmitting into the US. Yeah. So we're expecting an approval next summer, and we have multiple other indications under development.
Yeah, I think let's talk later about how to overcome setbacks. I think that's usually not easy for biotech executives, and but we can talk about that a bit later. On the products, maybe just to get back to the platform. I find it's pretty amazing that it works so well, and the FluidCrystal platform. Could you just tell me basically why, like how it works and why it works so well?
It works. Yeah, and I mean, we had a background in the area of lipids, cell membrane lipids and other lipids. And I mean, the outset was that we thought about a technology that could be easily administered, a depot technology at that point. I mean, there was basically only polymer system available. And they are, often require reconstitution and mixing and have some limitations due to the degradation resulting in acid formation and other things. So we developed a technology that we thought would kind of work from administration up to delivery, so to speak. And with the lipid system, you get very rapid encapsulation in a defined geometrical matrix, and you can control the nanostructure by controlling the compositions. So I think we had all the attributes, and most importantly, of course, you also need to have something that is biodegradable and doesn't result in, any toxic substances and so forth. And we're working with endogenous lipids, basically. But still, with all the documentation that we had available, we had to go through. I mean, from a regulatory standpoint, it took us a long time just to have all the toxicology data for substances that should be very well known to the at least the regulators.
Okay. I guess when you do something new, it's quite
you always have development barriers to.
Okay, and then basically it's a subcutaneous. You inject.
Yeah, most of the time. I mean, most of our programs are subcut, so subcutaneous under the skin. But it can also be. We have done intramuscular injections and so forth. So it's not limited to subQ. However, subQ is the most convenient injection form.
Yeah, because basically you inject and then it makes kind of a lipid aggregate, and then it degrades over months, and so you have the drug delivery or whatever time you want. You can control the release basically up, I guess, to a month, and then you have a steady release of drugs for months.
Our sweet spot is weekly up to monthly, and sometimes up to bi-monthly.
Or even
administration in best cases.
Okay, wow. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. And so I mean, one thing I'm also curious is that the long acting, it's amazing that it works so well and that it changes some of the drugs, which are basically generics, and makes them much more valuable for patients as well. I don't think I find it that obvious that it can make such a difference and deliver so much value.
No, you don't think so, but I mean, there are a number of components here. I mean, from a convenience standpoint, it's obvious that monthly injections are going to be more convenient than daily or 3 times daily or whatever. But there is also, from an efficacy perspective, that you have kind of continuous exposure at a certain level that is well defined, and you avoid
the pharmacokinetics. Are very much better.
And you also avoid potential tolerability issues with spikes in concentrations and so forth. And so those are important components. But for another thing is that, for instance, an opioid use disorder patient really doesn't want to be reminded of their disease. So the fact that you kind of have monthly doses makes you feel more ordinary, and you don't have to think every day on taking your medication. And I think that's this stigmatization, which is involved in many times in medications, shouldn't be underestimated. So there are
lots of drug is also
compliance is of course another very important aspect.
Okay. But it's kind of also, I mean, it's a bit different. I mean, a bit contradictory with the recent GLP-1 development, where they don't want subQ and they want the pill.
I don't think that's gonna. If you're looking at areas where you had the pill, for instance, if you take octreotide, we had first of all we had a short-acting injectable, then we had a long-acting. And then we got the twice daily pill, which had a very difficult time getting any market shares, and now I think it never was launched in Europe. Now it's coming a daily pill, potentially has a better faith, but patients don't want to take usually not twice daily medication when you can get an injection every month. So I'm not sure. I think for the GLP-1 area, I'm sure there will be patients who will prefer the daily pill, but I'm sure there will be a big group of patients that would prefer weekly or monthly or whatever new modalities that come in the space.
Yeah, I guess it's good if the patient has the option.
Yeah, I mean, treatment optionalities is very important. You can individualize treatment to lifestyles and other matters.
And the subQ, I guess it's the same as for diabetes patients, as a pre-filled syringe, and the patient can inject themselves.
Oh, you mean our sub?
Yeah, your sub-Q.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the good things with the FluidCrystal system is because it's a pure solution before it's injected, so it can be injected with relatively thin syringes and using state-of-the-art auto-injector or pen devices. So we are essentially using the same devices as you see for other commercial, recently introduced commercial products.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. So maybe let's move to the first product. I mean the Buvidal. I think it's the worldwide name, Brixadi in the US. What's quite funny is, I mean, from the research is that the drug itself was found in the 60s in the UK, I think, or discovered.
Absolutely. It's a very old molecular entity, but a very interesting compound because it's a combination of an agonist and an antagonist. So you have very positive effects on cravings and other things. On the same time, you avoid, for instance, respiratory depression, which is one big issue with opioids, where it can result in overdose and death. So it's got a very good profile from a mode of action standpoint.
Yeah. And then the actual treatment that it's for basically opioid dependent on patients to get them out of the craving.
Yeah, I mean, it's not saying a maintenance treatment of opioid use disorder. But the other point is that typically we also see that, some patients, when ready, they are tapering out and going to total abstinence. So it's a continuous treatment from the early chaotic state of dependence to in some cases then patients becoming completely abstinent. But our part of the treatment is the maintenance phase, you can say.
Yeah, the maintenance. Okay. We'll talk more about the opioid crisis as well. I read the Purdue Pharma book. I was quite shocked. But we'll talk about this after. The first on the, because I mean on the sales it's doing like pretty well. I think US, Europe, Australia, but I think you have quite a lot of difference in market shares from what I read. Like how come is like what's the explanation?
I think that first of all, I mean from sales, we have had double-digit growth now for since launch in 2019, year by year, and fortunately, I believe that will continue because there is a high medical need in terms of market penetration.
So the global says it's around $180 million 2024. That's
yeah,
it's on there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But looking at the market penetration, I think once there is funding available for patients, which is, now in Europe, government austerity is a big issue. But in markets where we have good funding, like the Nordics, Australia, we are market leaders in almost all segments.
Okay.
So that's and we have in Finland, I think we have more than 5,000 patients. When we started treatment, I believe the patient numbers available in patients was lower than 5,000. So we've actually captured also patients out of treatment. Australia, we have something like 20,000 patients plus in treatment out of a total of 60,000.
Okay.
Then there are markets that are more difficult to enter, and that's often the big European markets where there is financial hurdles. So patients have difficulty getting finance, reimbursement, and so forth. Okay. Or reimbursement is not always the problem. Sometimes it's just government funding to the treatment systems.
Okay. You mean as in like going to a clinic or something? That has to be...
the clinics, the budget for clinics can be limited.
Okay.
In Germany, we have a lot of resistance because doctors are reimbursed. So they're paid basically on the number of visits you have. And then that doesn't really favor a long-acting treatment. But nevertheless, I mean, our data are very strong. We showed superiority in reduction of illicit opioid use. We have shown a lot of quality of life advantages for patients with Buvidal. So I believe slowly and steadily we will continue to penetrate also the larger European markets.
Okay. And then when you say, for example, in your leading markets, you are basically replacing the generic version, the pill version, for those patients.
Mainly, I would say. Yeah.
Okay.
So and what we're seeing more and more is that there is a heritage of methadone treatment.
Yeah.
Methadone has first of all, it's much more toxic and it's very sedating. And we're seeing in the younger new patients mainly go into long-acting buprenorphine. Okay. But there is still, I think in Europe, there's a majority of patients on methadone. Okay. And we're trying to, and working, quite successfully to transfer more of the methadone patients over to buprenorphine, which is much less sedating and has several advantages also relating to the risk of overdose and respiratory depression.
Okay. And then I'm curious from the pricing difference, because I guess the generic version must be quite cheap. The pill version must be quite cheap. Methadone, I don't know. But
in many, and that's
I don't know what's the pricing. Your pricing,
despite that, it can be up to a factor of 10.
10, okay.
In price difference, but we can see, and we have done work in the UK, for instance, that every patient that we put on Buvidal, there is a for every pound invested, there is a threefold gain in terms of healthcare economical outcomes and societal outcomes. So you have to look at the totality of.
Okay. Yeah, which I guess is what the health authority wants. I think that's the most important.
Yeah, the problem.
But I can imagine you must have some resistance from health authority. You're saying,
of course,
there is a generic, and then
I think every company, independent of, still we're a low. If you're looking now at obesity, for instance, and looking at the healthcare costs of the obesity sector, we are much under the radar in that sense.
Yeah. Okay. And we will talk about so you got the second approval in Europe, I think this year, and then you also have a pretty promising. You just talk about obesity in a phase 1B with semaglutide or Wegovy. But one thing before, I'm curious on the compounds you're using, because it makes sense to use a proven molecule and basically improving everything you mentioned. I'm curious also why would you not develop a drug with a more, let's say, innovative molecule that is proper? That can only be done with your technology. Is it deliberate?
Yeah, we are. We're working quite broadly. We have several products with APIs that have not, that are not currently approved. Yeah. Those are often earlier in our pipeline for various different reasons. So I think we are agnostic to that. The important thing is that any medical product should provide, value to patients and ultimately, and that's what drives our investments.
But I guess until now it was just faster from a clinical development and market access to use existing APIs versus new ones. Huh?
Yeah, in a way, we have the efficacy profile, the tolerability and so forth. So the risk is, much smaller, of course, for an API which perhaps has been in the market for 20 years, like Oczyesa. Yeah. The safety profile and tolerability profile is fully established. Yeah.
And I guess you even have the phase 4 data or whatever. Everything. Yeah. Okay. And one thing I'm also curious is a bit more general question as well is how much, let's say, people were looking at your investors were looking at you as the long-acting versus the repurposing of drugs. Because when I saw you guys, that's kind of the first thing I thought. Okay, it's kind of a repurposing, but it's delivery, but it's kind of repurposing of the drug. It's not, but just wondering, maybe thinking, repurposing doesn't work that well in general. Investors don't want to finance it.
So yeah, no. I mean, I think repurposing. Yeah, I mean, in some way, it's the same thing. I mean, what we are doing is often, you can say, externally life cycle managing products, and we repurpose them in new indications and for new applications. So I think it's very similar. In a way, I don't know if there's a fundamental difference there.
Okay, but then did you get the like pushbacks on the repurposing? And I mean, there's quite a lot of setbacks on repurposing, especially in the biotech world.
Yeah. I mean, we always get pushbacks. It's the name of the game. That's where we are living. I mean, it's well, I mean, we are working in new indication, if you call that repurposing, for instance. Like for CAM 2029, we're going into polycystic liver disease, where there is currently no product available.
But for Buvidal, that's like not. I mean, it's the same indication.
Yeah, essentially the same indication. There are some nuances.
Okay, yeah. As always in pharma.
Yeah.
Okay, and so let's talk about so your second product. I don't know how you pronounce it exactly. Oczyesa, the commercial name at least. I mean, feels pretty good, I guess, to get the approval this year.
Yeah.
FDA is already planned, I think, for June this year.
Yeah. So for Oczyesa, which is a long-acting octreotide, we got approval in Europe in the summer, and then we launched it, and then UK. We launched it in Germany just in November timeframe. Yeah. And so far we've got very good feedback and quite a positive initial uptake. It's a small rare disease indication, but it's exceeded our initial expectations at least. So we're looking forward to penetrating continuing to see the uptake during 2020.
What were your expectations like?
I never go. We haven't announced anything, but I mean, we have a good uptake.
Okay. Yeah. But I saw there was going to be comparatively a bit more competition on this indication and quite some drugs available, and also from a pricing point of view.
Well, I mean, we have pricing we have in place in Germany, so it's I think we have a
little bit more from a pricing competition of like some competition cheaper prices.
That's I think what we are offering, it seems that is appreciated and has a clear medical value for patients, because this is the first product that can be long-acting product that can be administered by patients themselves conveniently with an auto-injector pen and on a monthly basis. And that has large value. Plus we have shown, convincing, strong long-term efficacy. So combined, there is a high medical need in this population. So, yeah.
And from I think I asked on the cover, from a peak sales or from a sales estimates, like what does it look like?
This is a relatively small indication, acromegaly. I mean, looking at it globally, we are expecting maybe up to 300 million US in terms of peak sales. But we are also pursuing the neuroendocrine tumor indication as our second indication, where we are expecting phase 3 data somewhere, we have said mid to late this year is closing the study, but then we'll see how long time it takes to get the data. That's the current estimates. But that market is maybe at least tenfold larger, so it's more like 2 billion.
Okay. Oh.
So that's a blockbuster potential.
And on Buvidal, what was the peak sales estimates? Or like
in the US, the estimates are our estimates are peak sales above 1 billion US. So
space to grow.
Yeah, I mean it's large potential, but more importantly, I think we are seeing very positive effects of the treatment out in the treatment landscape.
Yeah. But I guess it's also depending on the opioid crisis. I mean, unfortunately, the number of patients grew a lot. I don't know, probably in the last 10 years.
Yeah,
probably it's growing. Maybe at least it's calming down. I hope. I think so.
I think what you're seeing in the US is that actually overdose numbers are finally starting to decrease. It was peaking at just opioid overdosing was peaking at 80,000 per year or so.
Okay.
And total overdose numbers, all drugs included, was up at 100,000 or so. It's coming down, but I do believe a large portion of that reduction is that treatment, especially buprenorphine treatment, then has a positive impact on. So I think it's not that people are stopping using drugs. It's probably more, and this is, I should say, maybe not fully elucidated at this point, but more that because buprenorphine, as I said, partial antagonist, it blocks, it avoids then respiratory depression and protects patients from pure overdose deaths through or incidences relating to the respiratory depression.
Okay. I think I want to go deeper into it.
Yeah.
Maybe just finish on Camurus. So I want to talk about the last. I think in your pipe on the semaglutide program and finish on the hormone definance. I think on the pipe. I think that has, from what I understand, quite a lot of potential as well, and it's quite interesting from the investor's point of view. Mm-hmm. This program, and obviously, you see the sales from Vijalvi and the Lilly's product. Mm-hmm. I want to. I have a few things that comes to my mind because you're using Vijalvi, but then you have a deal with Eli Lilly.
Yeah.
But you don't have a deal with Novo. At least I don't think so. No. So how do you source it? Why this deal with Lilly? How does it compete?
No, we announced a partnership with Lilly basically in June last year. And I think it's very interesting because they obviously have a very strong position in the incretin space and specifically for treatment of obesity and other related disease. And also they had a unique position in their functionalities. With semaglutide, we had the opportunity to source the API ourselves, and we also wanted to keep an own development. So we conducted the first initial phase 1b study in patients with overweight or obesity with BMI above 27 to 39.9. And that study was very positive in terms of the readouts, rapid weight reduction, and also very extensive in relationship with the label dosing that is for the active comparator, which was Wegovy then. So we think the data are so interesting that we want to continue into a phase 2b study, and I think that's. And meanwhile, of course, our relationship with Lilly continues to evolve. We'll see how it progresses.
Okay, but how can you source it independently if you don't have even the procurement agreement?
There are multiple suppliers of GMP material. You should be aware that semaglutide is losing patent in certain countries like Canada and Brazil, I believe, potentially, so forth, and China already in 26. But even so, for clinical purposes, there is typically GMP material available for development.
Okay, because I know more for all the immuno-oncology trials where I think all the drugs that do combination with Keytruda or with Opdivo, usually they still have some kind of agreement.
Biosimilars is much more difficult. They are more difficult to develop and scale and so forth.
But not biosimilar. No, when they do combination trials.
Okay.
With Keytruda, usually they have an agreement with Merck. Yeah. Somehow to get Keytruda.
Yeah. That may be for different reasons.
Okay. Okay, fantastic. And then on the finance, just to finish, what's pretty amazing that you've been, I think, profitable for, for 4 years, I think now. And now you're like very profitable, I think, in 2020, 2024, even 2025. What was it? And your profit grew a lot, and you have like basically more than 50% net profit. This 2024.
Yeah, we've got our guidance for this year is a profit of 0.9 to 1.2 billion SEK.
Yes.
So that's, and we have a profit margin of I think we are last quarter about 43% or so.
It's amazing.
Okay. Yeah, it's good. I mean, I think the most important context there is not the profit margin. It's the fact that we are actually financing our pipeline as well. So I think what's unique with us is that we do have a strong commercial side, but also we have an interesting and advancing pipeline. So that's how I want to see the company.
And then I guess with this profit also, I mean, it grows your cash balance and gives you a lot of options. I mean, the cash you have, and also your very high market cap, I guess it gives you quite some options. And I heard you were looking also on the M&A side. You're looking also.
We're working. I mean, it's search and evaluation and ongoing processes
In progress.
Yeah, in progress.
How was JPM?
JP Morgan this year, it was very good. I must say that it felt like there was fewer people than ordinary, and I thought it was a little bit more tame than it can be. Sometimes it's a complete circus, but this year it was a little bit slower, but it was still very productive and
okay.
Yeah, but the hotel rooms are as expensive as ever. So,
and the chairs in the lobbies.
Yeah.
Okay, and then so maybe to continue to zoom back a bit more in the three topics on the opioid crisis. And I read the book out Purdue, and I was like quite shocked. I mean, it's quite a crazy story and quite in terms of unethically and greed and whatever you want to call it. Maybe I mean on the outlook, how do you look at this aspect? And obviously, you're bringing a solution which is much needed by patients. Like, how do you look at this crisis?
I mean, the origin of the crisis. Obviously, there's been. I mean, opioid use has been an issue in all of humanity. So it's not a new issue. But I think the combination of the marketing efforts and so forth that was done, and the messaging around chronic pain and so forth was very. I'm not a judge, so I should just be. But it wasn't appropriate. I do think there was other companies that joined. So I mean, Purdue was certainly very. Obviously visible in this, but there was a lot of other companies that joined the success in the chronic pain space in the early 2000s and so forth. So it was not alone. But I mean, for us, I think the future is to have good treatment for patients if they. I mean, this continues to be an issue beyond the OxyContin and so forth, because you have fentanyl coming in the US and so forth. So there are new challenges, and
so fentanyl would come in the same category.
Yeah, fentanyl is also. I mean, it's a synthetic, super potent opioid.
Okay.
Which also is very largely responsible for the increase in deaths that we saw in the kind of late 2010s. Because of its high potency, it is a respiratory depression. So I think we'll have to continue to fight these drugs coming in, but also make sure that patients who are impacted are treated and receive medical treatment, because it's the most effective way of dealing with this topic for patients.
But I guess especially in the US must be a challenge when they're already in opioid dependence and maybe they don't have proper coverage or healthcare coverage, then they don't even access treatment. So
I think you can say that in the US there is a big problem. I mean, also you have a big part of the comorbidity program. So you have a lot of patients that have psychiatric disorders and opioid use disorders, and they are often, living on the street and not receiving treatment. I think this is, from a humanitarian standpoint, this is an important topic to address. That also these patient categories should have access to treatment, and I think it would be, from a society standpoint, it would be a very, very wise investment.
Yeah. And then like something like Medicare, I guess, helped.
Medicare has been to some degree protected from a lot of the issues and cuts that have been taking place. So, for instance, the work requirements that were going to be introduced is not impacting substance use disorder.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's and how, like, because I feel like in Europe is much. It's less.
There are many Europeans. You can see, as we have been UK, we have had quite good, especially in Scotland and Wales, but there's still, very limited funding, and there is a large portion of patients that don't have access to treatment, especially don't have access to treatment with long-acting buprenorphine, for instance. So, there is huge potential for improvement and improved coverage of the broader patient population there.
No, I meant more from a number of patients per capita. I feel like the severity of the opioid crisis was just much stronger in the US than in Europe. I don't know if it's true, actually. I feel
Scotland is actually the country with the highest rate of opioid use disorder per capita. So the US is not, absolutely not isolated. But in terms of total population, of course, it's there's an estimated 2 million Americans in treatment right now, but they say that approximately 6 million are candidates for treatment. So it's a huge.
EU comparatively, how does it?
EU, it's somewhere around patients in treatment a little lower than 700,000.
Okay, so it's still a factor of 4 or 5 per capita, basically.
Yeah.
Which is a huge difference.
But a lot of countries, reporting is not always great.
Okay. I guess EU5, if you take EU5 per capita, I guess that's well more, better reported.
Yes, if you take EU5, it's lower incidence and prevalence than the US for sure.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm curious on the opioid because at the end of the day, opioids are also are very useful from a clinic in a hospital setting. And there's also a lot of even fentanyl. I just heard that it's used in hospital. As a painkiller or something.
It's a very effective painkiller, and it's used extensively in certain treatments, for instance, surgical interventions.
But what's part of the solution is inventing new painkillers to replace opioids for the patient.
There is a large effort to go for non-opioid painkillers, but in many cases, opioids are a very good analgesic agent, right? So and the best. So it's about finding the compromise and using different medical interventions where they should be used and perhaps not
overused
too broadly.
Okay, because that's the crazy thing with the crisis as well. Is that the side perdue is that in some, I think in quite a lot of hospital settings or patients are just overusing opioids, and then that what led to the dependence, and then some of the crisis for individuals or for patients.
I think it's a combined issue. Dependence is to one extent relating to overusage, but it's also relating to many other factors. And as I mentioned, life of people growing up, and addiction is a problem if it's alcohol or opioids. It's a problem that we have had as a species for a long time, and sometimes it needs treatment, and sometimes it can be resolved by other means and intelligence.
Yeah, but what I had in the back of my mind was also when we think of opioid crisis, we think of fentanyl, even we think, it's like a drug addict or recreational, and then when badly. But if it's from a like hospital, or like the origin is from a hospital overuse, a bit like an antibiotic and overuse, and then it has very severe consequences. And that was surprised me a lot in the opioid crisis in the US was not like the...
What we're seeing now in Europe, which is also very concerning, is that there were some super potent opioids that came in the 60s and 50s actually. So nitazines, for instance, which are now being seen in the different markets. So that's multiple times more potent than fentanyl.
Okay, wow.
And that's also again a threat, mainly because of the risk of overdose and mortality.
Okay. Yeah, fentanyl. I looked at a few things at fentanyl on how that's crazy how the whole cartels took it over and how it's manufactured. Also, I think most of it is manufactured in China and comes through cartels and then exported, and how it's so cheap to make and so potent that it's insane.
I mean, small quantities become cheap if the synthesis is not to
yeah. But also how addictive it is at the end and how potent it is. So yeah. Well, then we're getting into political solution. That's a different topic.
Fortunately, not my responsibility right now.
But back to biotech. One thing it's pretty crazy is that on the long-acting category, I mean, there's quite a lot of successful biotechs at least in Europe. Obviously, they're not direct competitor, but in similar space, I think Ascendis is also kind of quite...
Ascendis is a different... I mean, they've been their first product was the growth hormone, once weekly growth hormone.
It's also a bit of like kind of... Is it long-standing? You categorize it as long-standing technology?
So far, the approved products I've seen is once daily or weekly.
Okay.
But I mean, obviously, I don't know their pipeline, but I guess.
But then, at least the one Medincell is the one I think of.
And Medincell has a
really long
polymer-based system. It's a French company.
Yeah. Which passed the $1 billion mark, I think.
And they have also mainly focused on, I would say, antipsychotics, which is a category where this long-acting injectable concept has been used for a long time.
Okay. Yeah. But it's cool too, and I think Adosia as well, and I guess
I don't know. I mean,
also French company.
I've kind of seen it, but I haven't big insight into what they're doing.
But they're also in the diabetes, obesity space, but they're smaller than you guys. But still, I think $200+ million market cap dollars. Okay, and then maybe one. On the Swedish biotech industry, because it's pretty cool. I mean, even on I think I looked up, because one of our products is a podcast, the other one is a map or database, and I look, and there's basically 3 Swedish companies in the top 10 most valuable companies in Europe, at least the publicly listed. You guys are number 2. We count Sobi as a biotech company.
It is.
It is. And then BioArctic, Gunilla was actually on the show last year. I think they had 2.5 billion. How do you look at the? How do you look at it at the Swedish biotech ecosystem in general? Right?
I mean, it goes in. I think at one time it was even more successful. I would say in the middle of the 2010s, we had a lot of really quite large IPOs coming in 2015. I think we were the first company in 10-year time frame that did not listed.
Okay.
But there was a number of companies and some have been successful and been, like Wilson Therapeutics was sold to the US. And so it's been there's movement going on, but I think the Nordics have had traditionally very strong healthcare industry and pharmaceutical industry, and we're continuing to build on that. And I think the nice thing is that we do have a few, which is reasonably sized companies like BioArctic, Camurus, and a few others. And that's very important to keep the kind of momentum in the space and the interest in the area of healthcare.
Yeah, I guess it stimulates the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, I think so. And it's and Denmark has, of course, been successful with Ascendis has been one. So it's a strong development, and Zealand, Gubra, which we actually have a collaboration with. So yeah,
it's very Nordic and the part of gender.
I mean, it's I'm really impressed by and of course we would like to see that spread more across Europe. So, yeah.
But at least it's not far across the bridge.
No.
I came actually from Copenhagen. I mean, I landed there and I'm going after. And, actually, I will talk to the CSO of Novo Nordisk, so more industrial biotech or biosolutions. Also a really cool company. I mean, they're really strong in biosolutions in general. It's pretty impressive as well. Maybe to finish a bit more on some more personal questions. One thing is more from a career lessons. One thing that struck me was that you were first you're very connected to Lund because you studied in Lund, and then you're a professor in Lund. And what's pretty crazy also, you transitioned from professor to CEO, which is not completely uncommon, but it's also not that common. I know a lot of professor found companies, but it's more like scientific co-founder or sit on the board. Like why? How was the transition? Why and how was it?
I mean, I think basically I've always been entrepreneurial in mindset. So, and I really like the academic environment. However, you could see that it became increasingly, in my view, bureaucratic and resource strained. And so over time, I always worked parallel with companies and my academic work. But unfortunately, I think it, you have to search for grants and innovation was slow. So I thought it was, for me, it was great to go into this position and be able to work in a more effective and agile way. You would expect that would be the case in university, but sometimes academia is a little bit on the backwaters. But so plus what is exciting to work in pharma is, of course, the closeness between research and patients and
What were you doing as a professor? What was
I worked, everything from condensed matter physics to physical chemistry. I worked a lot with the nanostructures, material science, and things like porous media, complex fluids.
But not necessarily pharma then, it was also...
No, I had a pretty broad repertoire.
Yeah, you told me you did physics in France for 1 year.
Yeah.
And how was that to transition more to pharma?
No, I think we are somewhere in. I think it was. I think this is a super interesting area to work in, and because of the closeness between patients and actual science, and to make that leap was a great fortune for me, and I was always interested in biomolecular and bioscience, so it was a very natural move.
Okay, yeah. And I've seen also that you said you worked in France, you worked here, and I think you were a professor also in Oxford.
Yeah,
as a joint
visiting professorship in Oxford. Yeah.
So quite European as well,
Yeah, well, Europe is great.
I don't know, maybe you, tell me a bit more on that part, on how important is it for you now that you worked in the different countries?
I think it's always, in this space we have a large group of people from Australia and out up to Nord-Norge, the largest northern part of Norway. So, I mean, I think you have to have an international perspective and being able to, that's also part of the fun running a company like this, is that you have so many great people with geographical distributions and different approaches. So that's enriching, I think, all of our lives in the company, so to speak. So,
that's cool.
Yeah.
I will finish with a more quick fire, so it's like quick questions, quick answer. Just after that, I'm curious, even more personal, but what do you do outside of work?
Oh, I'm a good gardener.
That's why you have so nice plants on the office.
Yeah.
And the wall of plants.
The garden wall, yeah. No, I mean,
you're the one climbing and changing the plants.
Yeah, exactly. We'll do that. Yeah, I like being out in nature. I have a little bit of an esoteric interest. I'm a little bit of my interest in skateboarding is a little bit of
wow.
So I do some of that. I'm a little bit too old for it, but I try to still try.
That's cool. That's cool. Okay, finish on a quick fire. So, like, quick questions, quick answer.
Yeah.
The first one is Camurus going to be a $10 billion company?
I mean, I think that would be not where I can sit here and obviously we are striving to be that and more, but I'm not going to say anything more than that. But certainly our ambition.
Yeah. Is Lund a great place to build a biotech?
I think for most aspects it's really good. It's nicely located geographic. We have closeness to the airport, very good educated people, and also Copenhagen next door. So I think it's a good place. Yeah.
What's the most common misconception that people have about Camurus?
Oh, I don't know. Are there any misconceptions? I cannot swear on that, but I guess I think the most common is that people say Camurus.
Typical. One mistake you made in the past 12 months.
One mistake I made. I can't count the mistakes I make, but I've made a few. I can't really dig one up right now, but I'm certain that I've done some. Part of working is that you make successes, but you also make mistakes.
Yeah. How much is AI changing Camurus?
I think we are not on the front line of AI, but we are implementing more and more, and of course we are implementing it into our business processes, our intelligence, and so forth. So it's going to have a big impact on the company and in the future. But I wouldn't say that we are in the front of these developments. But we do have an active strategy.
It's more the foundation than the core business or the core drug development. It's more like the
I would say so.
Who is one of your biotech heroes or mentors?
I think when it comes to heroes, he's no longer around. But I mean, I told you, I was working in France with Duchenne, Pierre. He was a physicist, but he was a fantastic mentor and quality person. So a little bit of the Mick Jagger of physics. Breaking a lot of boundaries and also bridging theory and experiment, which I think is something of great importance, and being able to explain it as well.
He deserves his Nobel Prize. No?
He deserves his Nobel Prize for sure. Yeah.
Last question: if you have one advice to 40-year-old Fredrik.
Oh, yeah, work harder. No. I mean, yeah. I think obviously if I knew the tracks and I would maybe do a few things differently, but But I think this is a great sector to work in. It's fulfilling, and I think I would just do what you do.
Do even more.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Fredrik. Great conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it.
I'm impressed by what Fredrik has built in over 20 years. I'm also impressed by the depth of experience and his calmness. If you've enjoyed this episode, please hit the like, review, or follow button. Any of these actions will help many people discover the podcast. We also have plenty of similar videos on our channel, so please feel free to check them out. I would also love to hear what you think. So if you could leave a comment wherever you are, or shoot me an email at philip@flot.bio. That's philip@flot.bio. Thanks a lot for watching to the end, and see you in the next episode.